Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, we have the ongoing refugee crisis taking place, depleted uranium in U.S. weaponry, and United States President Trump's take on the media. These are just a few of the things we'll be covering in today's broadcast, but first, the desperate refugee crisis in France. Once bustling camp in Calais has become a wasteland. French officials are determined to not allow it to become yet another camp. Deputy Prefect of Pas de Calais, Vincent Berton, said of the camp, "It's not dignified for France, it's dangerous for the migrants, and it's not good for the local population, for public order, and for the local economy." Well, Calais has suffered a lot with this migration crisis. The position of French government is quite clear, he said. It does not want new camps in Calais.
Refugees haven't stopped filing into the area by the signs of the abandoned makeshift camps surrounding Calais. Now, these are indication that migrants are living very basic, with no running water, toilets, and the ground under their feet being soaking wet. Now, there is an official camp in North France about 30 minutes drive from Calais, but they only have enough space for about 1,500 people, and that camp is already completely full, so nowhere to go.
Yeah, sad. Officials say that more unaccompanied minors are arriving, and it's hard to keep track of them. A migrant camp director said minors are difficult to follow. This camp is partially financed by the state, but it's an open camp, so we don't check people's identities when they come to the entrance. They stay as long as they want, then they leave when they want. So today it may be 50 minors, tomorrow 25, maybe 75.
Well, the UK was going to take in about 3,000 unaccompanied youths, but that plan has been dismissed, leaving some of those children seeking dangerous ways to get there. One 13-year-old young man from Afghanistan said that he and his friends try to jump on UK-bound trucks every night. Now, last month, a young man from Ethiopia was killed after being hit by one of these trucks. The first youth migrant killed trying to reach the UK after the jungle known as Calais. The migrant camp in Calais was torn down late last year.
They say a desperate time sometimes call for desperate measures, and sadly
right.
Some lose their lives in the process. Well, on the other hand, Serbia is building, having received money from the EU. It is now housing thousands of migrants who are stuck within its borders. Abu Ahmed, a Syrian refugee, is trying to reach his family in Germany after trying to cross the border 3 times. He said that they were pushed back at the border by police who beat them brutally on the hands and on their feet in an attempt to break their bones. So according to Mr. Ahmed, this takes place every time they do reach the border, but he said he's determined to reach his son. He said he'll rest there for a couple of days, and then he's going to try again.
Well, according to the UN, over 7,000 refugees are documented in Serbia, and most are from Afghanistan. Serbian officials are in limbo as they wait for a solution. Ivan Miskovic, the Serbian Commissioner for Refugees, said, "We are waiting for the European unified solution. Are they going to make a deal with Pakistan, Afghanistan, or are they going to open borders again? We are waiting for a solution."
Yeah. Well, in Belgrade, it's almost the same situation, but without the nicer amenities found in Serbia. Hundreds of mostly Afghan migrants are stuck there after the EU closed its borders late last year. Currently, some of those migrants are holed up at an abandoned train depot with raw sewage and garbage scattered throughout. But with the borders staying closed, this, of course, is testing the limits of migrants who some say 1 or 2 months of the borders being closed, well, we might be able to do that. That might be tolerable, but 1 or 2 years, they said?
Yeah.
No way.
A long time.
Yeah, too long.
Well, many of the migrants in Belgrade are, like Calais, unaccompanied minors with no one to look after them. They do whatever they can to stay warm, even though the smoke from whatever they find to burn is sometimes toxic and choking. Now, one migrant youth said, "We have a problem of not being able to go to school because of the war, the Taliban, and Daesh."
He continued, "I want to go to school in Belgium." He says, "Here it's completely awful. We're breathing in this smoke. We're cold all the time. We don't have enough clothes. We don't have any showers." But the men and the boys at the makeshift camp refused to go to one of Serbia's official camps. Outside on the walls in spray paint, someone wrote, "Please don't forget about us," in a plea to Europe, asking that the simple things in life not be forgotten about for these migrants.
Well, continuing coverage of the crisis, we can see European nations growing ever more intolerant of migrants. They agree to allow them right of safe passage, as they call it, through their countries, but do not want them to stay. But while the refugees walk towards what they see as a better future, their options become limited.
That's right. Some countries are closing their borders, such as Hungary along its border with Croatia. This denial of access into the European Union has slowed the flow of people and diverted it towards neighboring Slovenia. The government there says it can't cope with a large influx of people either. They allow 2,500 migrants into their country a day.
But as Boštjan Cific, the Slovenian state secretary, explains, these people need to be just passing through. The problem arises when countries they are heading to, like Austria, will only accept 1,500 a day. Mr. Cific told TRT World, "We cannot accept a number of migrants larger than the number of those who will continue their journey. In a very short time, in maybe 10 days, we would have 35,000 migrants," he said, in Slovenia, which is unacceptable for us. So the numbers would get too high too quick. Right. They couldn't take them all.
Yeah. Well, Greece is another country receiving nearly 5,000 asylum seekers daily coming from Turkey. They are heading north through Macedonia to Serbia. And as the winter weather gets colder across the Balkans, the crisis becomes more miserable with each passing day. Aid agencies have warned if the flow of refugees gets interrupted, the already bottleneck situation will get bigger and lead to even worse suffering.
The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, is trying to help with this humanitarian crisis, but admits there is no plan in place to truly lessen the people's suffering or the European countries' burden. Now, neither the United Nations nor the EU have any real political solutions to handle this mass migration, which in turn means there is no relief for the pressure being felt at the borders, and no relief for the people who have been forced to flee their own homes and lands in search for a peaceful existence.
It's interesting that two large collection of nations can't come up with a solution to solve this problem.
That's right.
And it's getting very desperate. Well, while the refugees are fleeing, the battles in the Euphrates are still raging. YPN's Larry McGee is covering the latest concerning Syria for us, and also a shocking report on the confirmed use of depleted uranium weapons in the region. Larry?
Despite ceasefire efforts, the cycle of violence in Syria continues, with government forces having reportedly edged closer to the pivotal city of Al-Bab in the province of Aleppo. The emboldened government is also said to have captured a village east of the city that is believed to have been one of the last strongholds for ISIS mercenaries in the region. Additional territories also reportedly back under government sway include 3 cities near Palmyra, which at one point were occupied by Takfiri insurgents, a reacquisition which is said to have come through much government bloodshed. As a consequence, numbers of mercenaries are reported to be surrendering to state authorities under amnesty being offered by the Syrian government. Meanwhile, emboldened Syrian head Bashar al-Assad is vowing to liberate every inch of his war-beleaguered nation from terrorists. The leader has stated that the military's primary objective at present is freeing the ancient city of Palmyra and the eastern parts of the nation. The momentum of the battle is said to have turned to support the Syrian government following its capture of the critical city of Aleppo. The critical resource of water has been the target of last-ditch efforts by insurgents to cripple the city of Aleppo. This is following on the heels of an outage that left the area water destitute for a month. Takfiri mercenaries are reported to have cut off the vital resource from its spring at Al-Hafsa. The province's governor has stated that government forces have been working feverishly since then to restore services in conjunction with organizations such as the Red Crescent. Much to the alarm of Syrians and other concerned onlookers, the U.S. is acknowledging that it restored its use of depleted uranium while allegedly striving to combat ISIS in 2015. The operation was reportedly called Operation Inherent Resolve, where 5,265 rounds of armor-piercing incendiary were used with the reported intent of severely damaging the ISIS infrastructure, which enabled the mercenaries to generate revenue through oil sales. The issue with regard to the use of the weapons begins first with the fact that the U.S. gave a public statement at the outset of the 2015 operation stating that aircraft have not and will not be using depleted uranium munitions. The false assurances were aimed at easing fears related to the blowback the U.S. received for its use of DU munitions in Iraq in 2004, which was followed by reports of significant increases in infant mortality, miscarriages, and birth defects. Even more alarming were stats revealing higher cancer rates among citizens in the area than the survivors of Hiroshima. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Time, Jeff. Back to you.
Wow, it's a terrible situation with that depleted uranium. It shows you how the war goes so much further than just the actual battles. It goes years and years beyond. The suffering continues. Well, back in May of 2016, Donald Trump went on the offensive against the media, calling many of them losers as they criticized him personally and questioned his motivation for donating $5.5 million to the Veterans Charity. When asked if the press could expect the same kind of reception if Trump made it to the White House, he told the Daily Mail, if he's president, he will continue to berate dishonest reporters who write libelous stories about him. And libelous, Catan, is something that's written untrue to cause someone to have a bad opinion of someone. So he's getting on them for their falsehood.
Yeah, he sure is. Well, now that he's president, Donald Trump is living up to his promise. On his 28th day in office, he called an impromptu press conference, catching everyone off guard. Let's take a look at some of those excerpts.
I turn on the TV, open the newspapers, and I see stories of chaos. Chaos. Yet it is the exact opposite. This administration is running like a fine-tuned machine.
And with that machine, Mr. Trump boasted he has accomplished more in less time than any president in history. But the media, he said, are blinded to that by hate.
I'm going to continue to attack the press. Look, I find the press to be extremely dishonest. I find the political press to be unbelievably dishonest. I will say that. Many, we do have other people. You do have other people, and your ratings aren't as good as some of the other people that are waiting.
Pretty good right now, actually.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
If I may ask, sir, you said earlier that WikiLeaks was revealing information about the Hillary Clinton campaign during the election cycle. You welcomed that at one.
I was okay with it.
You said you loved WikiLeaks. At another campaign press conference, you called on the Russians to find the missing 30,000 emails. I'm wondering, sir, if you...
Well, she was actually missing 33, and then that got extended
with a whole
Maybe
pile
my
after
numbers
that.
are off a
but
little
that's
bit
it.
too.
No, but I did say 30, but it was actually higher than that.
If I may ask you, sir, it sounds as though you do not have much credibility here when it comes to leaking, if that is something that you encouraged during the campaign.
Fair question. Ready?
If I may ask you that.
No, but let me do one at a
If I may
time.
ask
Do you
a
mind?
follow-up. Yes, sir.
All right. So, in one case, you're talking about highly classified information. In the other case, you're talking about John Podesta saying bad things about the boss. I will say this. If John Podesta said that about me and he was working for me, I would have fired him so fast your head would have spun. He said terrible things about her. But it wasn't classified information. But in one case, you're talking about classified. Regardless, if you look at the RNC, we had a very strong, at my suggestion, and I give Reince great credit for this, at my suggestion, because I know something about this world, I said I want a very strong defensive mechanism. I don't want to be hacked. And we did that. And you have seen that they tried to hack us and they failed. The DNC did not do that. And if they did it, they could not have been hacked. But they were hacked and terrible things came in. And, you know, the only thing that I do think is unfair is some of the things were when I heard some of those things, I picked up the papers the next morning and said, oh, this is going to be front page. It wasn't even in the papers. Again, if I had that happen to me, it would be the biggest story in the history of publishing or the head of newspapers. I would have been the headline in every newspaper. I mean, think of it. They gave her the questions to a debate, and she should have reported herself. Why didn't Hillary Clinton announce that, I'm sorry, but I have been given the questions to a debate or a town hall, and I feel that it's inappropriate, and I want to turn in CNN for not doing a good job.
And if I may follow up on that, just something that Jonathan Carl was asking you about. You said that the leaks are real, but the news is fake. I guess I don't understand. It seems that there's a disconnect there. If the information coming from those leaks is real, then how can the stories be fake?
No, the reporting is fake.
And if I may ask, I just want to ask
Jim, you know what it is? Here's the thing. The public isn't, you know, they read newspapers, they see television, they watch. They don't know if it's true or false because they're not involved. I'm involved. I've been involved with this stuff all my life. But I'm involved. So I know when you're telling the truth or when you're not. I just see many, many untruthful things. And I'll tell you what else I see. I see tone. You know the word tone. The tone is such hatred. The tone is such hatred. The tone is such hatred. I'm really not a bad person, by the way. No, but the tone is such, I do get good ratings, you have to admit that. The tone is such hatred. Oh, Jim, if you look, the hatred, I mean, sometimes somebody gets, well, you look at your show that goes on at 10 o'clock in the evening. You just take a look at that show. That is a constant hit. The panel is almost always exclusive anti-Trump. The good news is he doesn't have good ratings, but the panel is almost exclusive anti-Trump. And the hatred and venom coming from his mouth, the hatred coming from other people on your network. Now, I will say this. I watch it. I see it. I'm amazed by it. And I just think you'd be a lot better off. I honestly do. The public gets it, you know. Look, when I go to rallies, they turn around, they start screaming at CNN. They want to throw their placards at CNN. You know, I think you would do much better by being different. But you just take a look. Take a look at some of your shows in the morning and the evening. If a guest comes out and says something positive about me, it's brutal. Now, they'll take this news conference. I'm actually having a very good time, okay? But they'll take this news conference. Don't forget, that's the way I won. Remember, I used to give you a news conference every time I made a speech, which was like every day. Okay? No, that's how I won. I won with news conference and probably speeches. I certainly didn't win by people listening to you people, that's for sure. But I'm having a good time. Tomorrow they will say, Donald Trump rants and raves at the press. I'm not ranting and raving. I'm just telling you, you know, you're dishonest people. But I'm not ranting and raving. I love this. I'm having a good time doing it. But tomorrow the headlines are going to be Donald Trump rants and raves. I'm not ranting and raving.
Aren't you concerned, sir, that you are undermining the people's faith in the First Amendment, freedom of the press in this country, when you call stories you don't like fake news? Why not just say it's a story I don't like?
I do that.
When you call it fake news, you're undermining confidence in our news media.
Here's the thing.
Isn't
okay,
that important?
I understand what and you're right about that, except this. See, I know when I should get good and when I should get bad. And sometimes I'll say, wow, that's going to be a great story. And I'll get killed. I know what's good and bad. I'd be a pretty good reporter, not as good as you. But I know what's good. I know what's bad. And when they change it and make it really bad, something that should be positive, sometimes something that should be very positive, they'll make okay. They'll even make it negative. So I understand it. So because I'm there, I know what was said, I know who's saying it, I'm there. So it's very important to me. Look, I want to see an honest press. When I started off today by saying that it's so important to the public to get an honest press. The public doesn't believe you people anymore. Now, maybe I had something to do with that. I don't know. But they don't believe you. If you were straight and really told it like it is, as Howard Cosell used to say, right? Of course, he had some questions also. But if you were straight, I would be your biggest booster. I would be your biggest fan in the world, including bad stories about me. But if you go, as an example, you're CNN, I mean, it's story after story after story is bad. I won. And the other thing, chaos. There's zero chaos. We are running, this is a fine-tuned machine. And Reince happens to be doing a good job, but half of his job is putting out lies by the press. You know, I said to him yesterday, this whole Russia scam that you guys are building so that you don't talk about the real subject, which is illegal leaks. But I watched him yesterday working so hard to try and get that story proper. And I'm saying, here's my chief of staff, a really good guy, did a phenomenal job at RNC. I mean, he won the election, right? Won the presidency. We got some senators. We got some all over the country. You take a look. He's done a great job. And I said to myself, and I said to somebody that was in there, I said, you take a look at Reince. He's working so hard just putting out fires that are fake fires. I mean, they're fake. They're not true.
Wow, well, one thing's for sure, if those press conferences continue to be just like that, they sure are going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's for sure. And like we've talked about in this report, hopefully those refugees will actually find a safe haven, a place where they can have their needs met and also actually achieve some peace.
Absolutely. The road may be long and hard, but hopefully the end result for them is well worth it.
That's right. Well, if you are looking for a place of peace, you can contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and the Prophetic Word magazine. To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. Or call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can also visit any of their websites at www.yahweh.com, www.yisraelhawkins.com, or www.yahwehsbranch.com. You can also visit our website at www.ypnnews.com. You can also email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all other calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And of course, don't forget the best study resource to the Holy Scriptures, the Yisrael Says program. You can find that by going to www.yisraelsays.com. And if you have any type of scriptural question, well, don't Google it. Ask Yisrael. You can find that by going to www.askyisrael.com.
Well, once again, don't go anywhere. Up next is Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.